Hi everyone, my name is Francesco Cipollone, or Frank, for who knows me on Twitter, Frank42, FrankSec42. I'm the director of both NSC42 and Security Phoenix, that are fundamentally application security consultancy companies. And we recently, well, more recently, but in a while, we've been using a way to assess people and clients that I want to share with all of you. That is an absolute fantastic tool for application security assessment. It's called Owasp Samm. Now, the world of application security has fundamentally many standards. That is fundamentally the one that I've been using the most is Owasp Samm. BSIM is a little bit more granular, but there is a contentious discussion about being vendor specific, while SAMM is of course part of Owasp. So open source, everybody can dig in and assess. And then there is of course the ASVS, that is more of a guidance based on vulnerability and risk. And we will explore mainly the difference between the various areas. But today I want to focus on SAMM because it's been a fantastic tool, and I want to let you know, guys, how to use it, and then what we're doing in the background and what we can do to make your life easier about assessing. So if you start anywhere into an organization and you don't know what to do from an application security perspective, a good starting point is to assess the maturity around different areas. And Owasp Samm is fundamentally there to do so and to help you guys to get up to speed in the various areas and define a plan and a timeline. Now, let me show you what Owasp Samm is all about. I hope you can see. So you can start fundamentally on the web page. It is owaspsamm.org. And the section that probably I suggest is getting started, because it tells you how to prepare it, who to involve, how to get assessed, the various link, and then you can go on the toolbox or the GitHub. A good suggestion is if you are familiar with GitHub, go directly there because all the information are here. And at the moment, the toolbox is the recent version that is being published. The most used one is 1.5. We are getting towards 2.0. I'm going to explore a little bit the difference. There isn't a drastic element of difference, but there are some nuances that I want to cover. So definitely this is something to look at. There is some app in the making from various people. I'm going to write a blog about all the resources that are available on Owasp Samm. Hopefully it will be useful for you, and I'll share our toolbox that we've been using so far. So back on Owasp Samm, when you download the toolbox, fundamentally you get access to this spreadsheet. It's free to use for everybody, so please do so. You start, so fundamentally actually let me get out of the way. I'm gonna become very round and very small. At least I'm not in your way. So Owasp Samm has fundamentally a series of question and answer that you can give with some level of guidance around different parts, from governance, implementation, assessment, testing, and operation, all revolving around designing secure application. Here you go. That's probably a good view. So you start by going into the interview section of the toolkit, and you have a full level. No, I'm not doing anything. Yes, I'm doing basic assessments. Yes, and yes, I'm doing a lot of stuff. Together with this, there is a PDF that comes where you can dive in certain things. We collapse some of those things into another spreadsheet that I'm going to show you in a second. But fundamentally, if you want to start and do a basic assessment or an assessment, just make sure you have enough people around the room to ask the right question. Otherwise, the question might be, or the answer might be biased. You have right now in the new version, you have governance, it stays the same. You have strategy and metrics and the various areas that stay the same. What it changed is you start introducing streams and collection of questions based on streams. You have fundamentally 6 set of questions based on streams where you can give this 3 maturity answer, and they tend to go in couple. So create and promote, for example, level 1 goes with measure and improve of level 1 again. So that's usually how I look at the assessment. I go 1 in 1. And if you look at the formulas behind it, fundamentally the assessment is 1 in 1. So the assessment is based on 1 to 3, but we have a version on 1 to 5 as well if you like the CMMI metrics more than 1 to 3. Well, 0 to 3, so 4 levels. As I said, you start on governance, you can start on strategy, then you go in policy and compliance. This is probably in education and guidance. This is all revolving around what you do to support application security. Then you go into design phase. This is more pragmatic. You start with threat assessment, threat modeling, then you go into the requirement section, supply, and then you go into the architecture. So it's a little bit step forward from the requirement. And finally, you go into the implementation phase and into the testing phase. And then you go to the operational aspect. Now, once you finish off the 90 questions that compose, and you can do it over time, you fundamentally jump into the scorecard. So you look at the various set of questions, as I said, 1, 2, and 3. It gives you a score around the major areas, and then an overview of the governance section, the design. So you can see at this point in time where you are. Sorry. At this point in time where you are. Now you have different level here. So at the beginning it can be quite confusing, but the different level are driven by the roadmap. So into the roadmap, once you've done an assessment, you start thinking, okay, I am in this particular section. Where do I want to be? So I want to be very, very mature around these areas in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years. You can define the year range in here. And once you finish off responding to the 90 odd questions or defining how you want to mature, and I suggest you don't do it in one go. You start working on it, understanding what the consequence, what the task linked to it are, and then you start defining the various different level. And you can use the PDF version of the guidance together with this spreadsheet. It goes hand in hand for recommendation. And you fundamentally, once you finish off the evaluation, you can have the various level from a current one, the current version, to the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So phase 4 is your final round. You can also look at this version in this different graph version. Metrics is fundamentally the same. Probably once it's going to be finished, it's going to be consolidated. And there is a number of talks that dives in and out the various section. But today I want to just do a quick guide on where SAMM is. And it's fundamentally, this is it. Is an assessment tool that enables you to define a roadmap to the evolution and a number of tasks. Now, in order to make it more simplified, there is a number of assessments that are kicking about, as I said, BSIM, ASVS, are other tool standards. So we taken effectively Owasp Samm, the version 1.5 that we used to use is down here. As I said, it's not much of a there is a little bit of a difference. The 6th question, there's still 6 questions. The stream has been renominated in a different way and so on. So I recommend to use the current version of the interview that is 2.0 at the moment. And we started thinking about the tasks. So the tasks are fundamentally a mix and match of objective tasks and things to do to effectively go from one maturity level to the other. And we started representing it in a different way with the mapping, with our input on what we think it's good practice as well from our experience. And this is still pretty much a work in progress, but it will ultimately end up being a representation of the maturity and the task per maturity. So you can jump from one task to the other quite easily and eventually reply to compliance section here if you want to just have a task view. We also introducing the KCI and KPI, so the metrics and how quick, how often you want to do them, and we're going to compare this, of course, with the material that is provided by SAMM. Roadmap, we integrated into the new roadmap chart a maturity assessment in a bit more simplistic view. We created, instead of the 1 to 3, the 1 to 5 or the 0 to 5 maturity, and a mapping from where you're here and you want to be there. So in the various jumps, you can define you're here at the moment and you want to be in this position. It's an easier and quicker way to define the roadmap before you go and jump into the full blown roadmap chart on the various level. Now, as I mentioned, there is BSIM kicking about. We need to still adjust this one, but this is fundamentally a BSIM to an Owasp Samm to BSIM mapping. So there is a number of tasks in BSIM that are getting mapped to effectively SAMM activities, and we also integrated the overall score. So this is based on the interview and the assessment of SAMM dynamically. And also we started looking at the ASVS and we start considering the various category level of SAMM and the various levels, so we can include all these recommendations in one single screen. I find ASVS very, very actionable and is also linked to the CWE, so to a practical risk. What ASVS is missing sometimes is the governance sections. But if you look at level 1, there isn't a tons of work to do for reaching level 1 at least. It's really the minimum settings that you should do. And it's more technical, it's more practical, while Samm covers a little bit more the program perspective, and the view and the task list that we started creating covers a little bit more element. And that's pretty much it. Now, we started working on this and we said, why not taking it a step even forward? And we started creating a web application that effectively creates that questionnaire into a flow of questions and enable you to see all the dashboards, the various level of performance from 1 to 5. And then you go into a more detailed section into the various questions. And we are effectively open to contribution. And if you want to get early on board and start using it and start testing it, we are open for it. So you just go here, click on get early access, and you should be redirected to the right page. Yeah, to the right page. To get early access, and we're going to share effectively information about where you can access and how you can access. And we want to be having people to use the application security and also not. So we want to use practitioner and not practitioner to see how usable the tool is. And maybe I can give you a quick overview of the tool. I'm going to make a different video on the flow of the design that we make. We're working on the various planning. Then the workflow is a very sketchy on the workflow of the user authentication, plenty of notes here and there. And then we have still reaching a naming convention. So we use Miro, actually. It's a very good tool. And we start designing effectively the web interface, the interaction, And then we're taking from here to Figma. So we use Figma for whiteboarding, for storyboarding once the questionnaire is a little bit more assessed, and then we're taking it to the web front end and so on. So I hope this one was informational. I hope you guys want to join us in, well, me in thanking all the guys from Owasp for all the effort. And I'm going to share, and I'm going to open source, of course, the spreadsheet with all the information, because we want to give back to the community. And it's absolutely one of my key objectives. The version of the clinic is going to be free forever for the basic assessment, and we wanna have all you guys to join in and test it, break it, and let us know what you think. So this is Francesco Cipollone. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you can use, stay safe, and implement application security. Goodbye.